man, as I'm looking at my pipeline, looking at my deals, man, this thing is just ain't working, man. My deal's stalling. Nothing's progressing. I ain't making no money. What's up with that? Well, you know what? Maybe if I listen to that episode that Edwin did with Donald, perhaps it can give me some insights. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have a phenomenal guest. His name is Mr. Edwin Aristor. Edwin and I got a chance to connect a while back. He runs a sales coaching business. He's been a decorated sales professional working with Fortune 500 organization as well as startups. So he's been through gamut. He's done a lot of different content, a lot of personal development, and he has practiced the principles we're talking about today. And on this episode, what we're going to talk about, that secret ingredient, that one thing that sales professionals need to adopt, this thing that if you don't apply it to your discos, it's not going to help your deals, and it's killing your deals because you're not doing it. You want to know what that one thing is? It is about, I'm going to keep you hanging. Edwin is going to tell you all about it as we dive in, but just let me know. Let me just give you a hint. It's just, it has to deal with curiosity. All right, check it out. Edwin, welcome to the show.
Donald, thank you for having me. Super honored and grateful to be here today.
I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm excited to talk with you. Specifically, I want to talk about the curiosity. As a sales professional, this is something that that's important, not only as a sales professional, as a human being. And I think curiosity has helped us advance to where we are as a civilization. Before we dive into that, though, and go become anthropologists, I want to go deeper into about you. Tell us a little bit more about you, man, and what you do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So where I would start, my name is Edwin Aristor. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a sales professional, I'm a coach, and I've currently been doing men's retreat facilitation. So those are some of the high level points for me right now. Currently, I work for Praxis Labs. I'm part of their go-to-market team. Praxis Labs is an immersive learning platform helping our organizations and partners build inclusive leadership skills.
I love it. This is so cool. Let's talk about curiosity, Edwin. Why is curiosity so important? Well, let's back up. Let's go definition. What exactly is curiosity when it comes to in terms of sales?
Yeah, the way I look at curiosity is really having a deep, authentic listening to prospects, to potential customers, just really understanding like where they're coming from and asking like second to third level deeper questions of like, why is that important? What's the impact if this is not working versus when the things are working? So having that deep listening and just being authentically curious on what they're talking about and understanding some of the different layers and nuances behind what they're saying.
So it's not taking the surface level answers per se, and going further with it. Like it's going deeper, listening and taking a little bit more than just surface level stuff. Right?
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I've been in sales for about 15 years. There's been plenty of times that I've had happy ears. I hear that one little nugget.
Come on, bro.
I got a deal. It's going to go to the finish line. But because I didn't really unpack what they said, they understand some of the challenges that they've had in the past, what they've tried to do to correct that situation. Because I didn't ask some of those questions, I've had a deal stall. I've had customers ghost me because I didn't have authentic listening and going deeper to what are their challenges, what are some of the things that they've been going through to really support them, solve some of those meaningful business challenges, and really support that that client. Because I think when it comes to business, I've come from challenger sales, sandwich sales, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I really like take to heart is what's the business going through, what's the department going through, and then that individual, like what's the personal gain that they may get if I put a solution in place that's going to support them and their team and ultimately the business. So having that personal and business connection has really been important, and having that authentic curiosity around it is what's allowed me to be successful in sales.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm putting some notes down on this one. So here's where I want to get. I'm going deeper. I'm going to go curious, and I'm going to cut down a couple layers here. Go back to Edwin being in that lack of curiosity space. Why? Why did you just jump on happy ears?
Um, I would say a lot of times, early in my sales career, I did some transactional sales when I'm working at a personal bank, which was helpful to kind of get them to the finish line. But because I was asking some of those deeper questions about their financial goals, I let a lot of deals and progress off the plate because then I have that deep listening. So when I transitioned into staffing solutions, I worked at Tech Systems for 6.5 years. I went over to LinkedIn, Gartner, and I've been at two startups focusing on DEI. I think a lot of times, in that early career, because I didn't have that deep listening, and funny enough, I didn't have that deep curiosity for myself. I had the happy ears and just kind of went at the surface level. But as I continued to progress in my career, having that deep investment in personal development, I've spent thousands of dollars in different trainings and personal development events and different activities. When I started doing more deep listening of myself, I became more deeply interested in people that I would work with. And that's when things started opening up. That's when I started building deeper relationships, deeper connections. And that's when I've seen my success in my career take off.
I love this because there's several things that I picked from that. One, you gain confidence with experience. Two, you just you got tried and tested. You did a lot of different scenarios. The third thing that I hear is going back to this confidence idea is because you're confident and knew what to do, and you experienced some stuff in the past. You saw what caused deals not to close. You are open to do this. I'm being vulnerable here, and I'm going to tell you some of the reasons that hindered me. I think for some of those that you shared, I was in that same boat, and I also didn't want to tick people off because let's say at the end of the call, you say you're going to call me back. I'm like, okay, Edwin and I jammed, we bonded, learned this in New York and so forth. And he said, I'm going to call him back. Why rock the boat? Why push the man and ask when and go deeper? Let's just go ahead and wait for him to call me back. Or Edwin tells me, Donald, send a proposal. Happy ears, get excited. But in my head, I'm thinking also like, well, I don't want to ask him about if there's who's a sign off process because I feel like I might offend him or I think there's a part of that for me that held me back as that junior seller in conjunction with those things that you mentioned. But I feel that for me it was like I don't want to rock the boat. I want to keep things copacetic. Am I making sense on this? And it caused
um,
my curiosity to like not even I ain't gonna be too curious about that. Curiosity to kill a cat, Edwin.
One thing, I was watching some of your content, and it kind of resonates with me just in terms of my sales career. Like having that healthy tension, I think is
Yeah.
really important. Having that deep discovery of like, hey, what could actually stop this deal? Who are
Mm.
the decision makers? Like, hey, in my experience, a lot of these decisions aren't made in a vacuum. Who else is going to be part of this decision? Hey, which department that we need to know about that could ask this deal, this proposal, etc. So when you start asking some of those uncomfortable questions, then you get ahead of some of the potential objections, but really understanding, hey, who are some of the people that needs to be empowered? Not only my prospect, maybe different departments. Asking some of those uncomfortable questions, that's going to help you really get through. Like, hey, is this an actual deal that you have? Or, hey, this is not actual deal because you haven't asked those hard questions. So when they stop responding or they tell you no because you didn't ask any of those hard questions beforehand, then you feel like you're chasing quota at the end of the quarter, you're chasing quota at the end of the year because you're not asking those hard questions. And I think that's something that's I've learned from some of my mentors and some of my peers has been really, really powerful. And then a quote that was really helpful for me in my career from one of my mentors. She said the day that she became vulnerable is the day that she became powerful. And I'll
Come
say it
on.
again. The day that she became vulnerable is the day that she became powerful. A lot of
Well,
times I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't being vulnerable. I
yeah.
wasn't being open, not only to my peers, to my manager, but then to my clients. And there was a lack of authenticity during those conversations. So when I opened myself up, asking for help, asking for support, not only from my peers, my manager, and even from my clients, that's when I started seeing a shift in my career, asking for that level of help, asking for that level of support. And that's when I started things taking off in the trajectory of my career.
Come on, man. I love this. So much goodness in that. So the one being willing to ask those questions, and I think that's the other level of that curiosity too, because I mean that's some element of curiosity, right? If I'm curious to figure out what worked for Edwin, or what's what can you help me out with, and being vulnerable, I think there's a good level of that, the vulnerability and that curiosity. Um, that can really make that powerful. And I'm gonna put that link down, that quote in the show notes. That's gonna be our click to tweet or something.
I
What is
love
it
that.
called now? It's click to X, not click to tweet anymore.
One of
Since
them,
Twitter.
one of them. Like I think people still call it Twitter anyway, even though it's been
Yeah.
called X for like almost a year now. But let's keep it Twitter.
Yeah. And think about this too. Like, I want to go back to this idea of vulnerability. I feel like when you are vulnerable, vulnerable it makes you powerful. When you're vulnerable to the eyes of your prospects, it also can help to make that curiosity way easier. And I'll give you an example. When I first started becoming a server in college at a restaurant. I did this in the evenings and so forth. And one of my managers, she taught us something. She was like, "Tell them that you're new." When you're vulnerable to people, tell them that you're new. And then now you can use that new card, so to speak, and people will, have a level of forgiveness for you. But if I were working with you, Edwin, and I can say, "Hey, this is my first time. Is it okay if I ask a question, Edwin?" That's a Sandler, right?
Mhm.
um, I don't. I've never. Obviously, I've never worked with, in particular, with your company. Work with other companies, and everyone's process is different. I can admit I don't understand your process. Do you mind sharing me what your process is like when it comes towards partnering with a new client? But I feel if I'm vulnerable and expressing that I don't know in that situation, it's not saying that I'm incompetent in selling. I don't understand your internal process because I don't work. You see what I'm getting at? So I think there's a level of that vulnerability and curiosity that can definitely help in that. Thoughts, feelings on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the things that's been really impactful for me by showcasing that like vulnerability, that authenticity, that curiosity is like, hey, walk me through your process. When was the
Yeah.
last time you purchased a software? Who was involved? What are some of the stakeholders? How often was procurement there? Like, what are the things that procurement cares about? What does some of the other additional stakeholders care about? So having that openness, that curiosity, and having them walk me through, and then you can kind of share, hey, I've worked with a lot of different clients. I've been able to walk them through when they want to onboard either a new startup or established company like a LinkedIn or Gartner. By having that conversation and walking them through, like not only do the prospect and the client feel empowered, I feel empowered because we're going through this together. Like there's a level of co-creation that
Mm-hmm.
allows a lot of some of these six-figure deals I've been able to close in my career really, really powerful.
Can you tell us about a specific experience you had where you adopted that, or a scenario where you asked that question, and how the deal worked out? You don't have to give names or anything like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would give you an example. So during my tenure at LinkedIn, I worked
Mhm.
with a really major brand and some of the different subsidiary brands that kind of was underneath them. Um, I met with the head of global TA. Broke bread with him by traveling to North Carolina, sitting down, understanding about the business, meeting stakeholders, peers, just really understanding what his goal is and about his level of promotion that he wants to get within the organization. But most importantly, like how to really create a talent strategy that not only impacts the big brand, but some of the subsidiaries underneath them. And so by understanding like what his goals were, understanding what the business cared about, but then also work with my own internal peers that work with the other brands to say, hey, we're trying to create this big relationship with this client. So let's walk each other through this together. So not only I had to kind of like multi-thread with my internal organization, I had to multi-thread with some of the brands and those departments, and then I had to really bring this up to the main stakeholder.
Yeah.
And by walking through each and every one of them, providing updates and little bullet points like, hey, I met with this individual. These are some things I've learned. So keeping like everyone part of the journey together, that allowed me to close one of the biggest deals, within my segment. That allowed me to get to like a higher level place within that year. It was tough. It was hard. But I think by walking everyone through, keeping everyone updated in real time, and talking about the bigger vision, I think that's what led to that really big deal. But most importantly, the client was happy, my peers was happy, and I was happy because that commission check was really nice. And that was the
That's
year I was
good.
getting married too, so it really helped with the wedding.
Oh, sucky. I feel you on that, man. You got to. That's good stuff.
Mhm.
One of the things that you brought up now, I wanted, as we were coming ready to, starting getting ready to our descent in our final destination. I want to talk about what are some of the ways I can practice curiosity, because there's the times as you don't want to practice only in game time. You'd love to practice beforehand, but you've done such a great job of implementing curiosity in so many different ways. if I'm an individual seller, you're giving me some tips and advice. How can I go about practicing it? What's some ideas you would give me?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, practice, practice, practice. I think, as I mentioned, I've done a ton of investment in personal development. I've done the Landmark, the Sacred Sons, Momentum, Education. I've been part of men's group. And I think I leverage a lot of that personal development training in my personal life. And I would say one of my best teachers has been my wife, is, when, she has something to share. And because I wasn't asking some of those deeper level questions, we didn't really get to the root of maybe some of the challenges that we're going through with some of the feelings that she was sharing. So by asking those open-ended questions and say, hey, like, sweetheart, what are the things I should be asking about? She's like, hey, like, you didn't ask me why was this important, or why is this an issue? You didn't really unpack what was going on. So I think for me, it's like asking a lot of these questions in my personal life with brothers, family, friends. When my friends are going through big challenges, having like a new listening where it's coming from a judgment-free zone, but just being open to understand like what they're going through. I think that allowed a lot of practice in my personal life. And then when it came to work and game time, doing the role plays with my manager, getting their feedback. Hey, what could I have done differently? Is this something that I should have said? Should I have said something different? Listening to my own recordings, during my tenure at some of my
Mm-hmm.
previous companies, I had Gong as a tool. So going to my recording, and then when I actually listen to my recording, I'm like, damn, I should have asked that question instead. So I think, just that constant practice and that repetition, but also like soliciting that feedback. Hey, what could I have done differently? What could I've asked? And sometimes even ask some of my customers like, hey, is there something I didn't ask? And they're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? This is something that you probably could have brought up. So like constantly asking for feedback, and then practicing, but coming
Cool.
from a place of deep listening and from a judgment-free zone, because you don't want to have your own agenda, even though sometimes as salespeople we have an agenda. But if you have that openness, the client knows that you're generally curious, and then that's what progresses the conversation. That's what makes it move it forward.
Yeah, and I like what you shared there, the audio. Like, sorry, go back and watching tape, so to speak, or listening to your
Same
calls.
tape.
Yeah, it's like because you become super curious now. What if I'd said this then? If I implemented this at that point, what could I have done for the conversation? I mean, hindsight's 2020, but you're learning for the next go round, right? Or as you listen to it, it's like, dang it, I wish I had gone a little bit deeper at that point. I could have asked more questions. So I think these things definitely help practice to help you get that practice. I love what you said, mentorship and getting mentors, or getting other people that you can work with. The practicing. And those things help. I remember when I first started in sales, my my wife got annoyed. She kind of got into. She understood the game, but it was I started asking a lot more of those questions, like tell me more. Interesting. It sounds like there's a story behind that. Like you're trying to get below the surface or get a little bit more insights from it, and that little practice in the home or in in our personal life, and also did it with my family as well, other family members and friends. I saw that it led to a lot richer conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. I just find that oftentimes people are not willing to divulge their problems to you. Like you talk to somebody, how you doing? Life's good, but deep down below the surface, when I say, yeah, I just found out my my dog has blah 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 disease, or you know, or
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Joe is in jail, or something like that. You're not going to tell strangers that on the first go around, but usually once you've warmed up to the person, you can have that level of trust. You can have that deeper connection or multiple questions asked. It gives us an opportunity to go deeper and share more. So, anyways, I like this. I like it. What about the sales leaders listening to this call, Edwin? We got some of the sales leaders listening to this, and she's probably thinking, yeah, my team needs this. I just don't know how to help them with it. What advice you would give to her on how she can help her sellers to practice curiosity more?
Yeah. What's interesting with one of my managers that really stood out, we did a couple different exercises, and really the crux of it is around, instead of trying to be interesting, be interested. Like if
Mm.
I'm interested in that person, things are going to open up. And a couple of role plays and exercises that we did was around nothing related to the product, nothing related to the company, but doing role plays around different topics that's like non-business, non-sales related, and having a conversation around that. And we started practicing, hey, what other deeper questions that you can ask? So if you can do this, personally related versus, the business context, if you're able to do role plays on that end, then naturally you progress in terms of business and the products, etc. And we probably maybe run through about like 4 to 5 different, role plays during a quarter that was not business related. And that really helped that skill of curiosity that allowed me to ask better questions when it did come to game time with my clients, my prospects, and different, while I was building pipeline and forecasting, etc. So by practicing non-business related, it actually improved my business acumen and my sales motion and my sales discovery and my level of questioning. So that's something that I thought was really impactful, not only for me, but I saw it happen with other members within my team. And I was like, you know what? That's actually really interesting to take that
Yeah.
approach, because we already have this agenda all the time about the product that we're selling. But if you take the product out of it and just ask open-ended questions about anything, that's going to actually translate better into the business conversations and the sales motions that you have with your product and your team.
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. This has been good. As we get ready to land, I would love to hear from you. If there's one major takeaway you'd like folks to leave this conversation with, Edwin, what's that one major piece of advice? I know.
No, it's a great. If I'm like listening to my body and like taking a deep breath, and I think really it's come to presence. When you're extremely present with the person in front of you, the person across the screen, the person on the phone, by having a level of presence, that's what's going to create that deep listening. And from that deep listening, that level of curiosity, and from that level of curiosity, that's where the relationship starts building. So when you're extremely present in that moment, everything else is going to flow. And that's when the relationship is really building. And that's when people can feel that personal connection. That's going to allow them to work with you because they know that you're generally interested in supporting them, the problems and the issues and the challenges that they're going through. And that's going to help the business move forward. So I would leave you with having that presence. So being very mindful, taking that deep breath before you get on that Zoom call, before you make that phone call. How can I be of service with this for this individual? Like, how can I serve? And having that mindset, I think, has been really, really powerful for me personally, and just some of the people I know in my life who are extremely successful.
Love it, man. How can we get in touch with you, Edwin? If folks are listening to the show, they love what you share, they feel it'd be great to connect with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple platforms. LinkedIn, I'm actually very, very active on LinkedIn. So Edwin Aristor. I have my own personal website for my coaching practice, edwinaristor.com. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I do men's retreats and facilitation. So we have an upcoming retreat on July 13th. It's called Rituals of Men. One of the biggest things for me that's been really powerful is my connection to getting deeper into my heart. And by having deeper connection with my heart, I'm able to improve the relationships with my wife, with my son, and other people in my community. So I really love supporting men in their journey. So ritualsofman.com. July 13th is going to be our next retreat, a men's activation. It's going to be a leadership summit. So we're going to do some deep, deep work on helping men be better leaders in their community.
I love it, man. We'll put those links in our show notes. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. Thanks for your curiosity, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Donald, it's been such an honor. It's been super, super grateful. Thank you for this time, and look forward to the next conversation.
Anytime. Hey, that was Edwin, and I'm telling you, man, the man knows what he's talking about. This curiosity concept is critical, and I know I was teasing you at the very beginning, but it's important. We've talked about this before, but you just understand if you can adopt curiosity, if you can be more curious in your conversation, it's going to help that conversation to go further. You'll be able to help your deals progress further, and you're not going to have things stalled there on a vine. I promise you, I absolutely promise you, this stuff works, and I would love for you to try it and love for you to test it out. Now, I want you to connect with Edwin, check out some of the things that he's talking about, check out his website, and see if there's some benefit that can help you. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. And if you're looking for a way, if you're curious, my bad, if you're curious and you want to improve your sales game, please check out our sales mastermind. The mastermind is dope. And here's the reason why. We have individuals just like you who are part of the mastermind. We get an opportunity to share our challenges, get help, get guidance, get coaching, practice some stuff that's going to help us to improve our sales game. And I would love to have you join us. You can find more details in the show notes. But go to the salesevangelist.com/mastermind and apply. We only have a limited number of spots per cohort and would love to have you. Again, the salesevangelist.com/mastermind, July 16th or 11th is our next group. So please check it out. Look forward to seeing you. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise your level of thinking. But most importantly, I want you to build that pipeline. Check out our sponsors and go out and do big things. See you on the next one.